Hello, trading has closed on August 15th, 2024. As always, we'll start with our disclaimer, go over our calls, and make our predictions. It's my trading plan for tomorrow, August 16th, 2024. Please remember, my calls can be completely wrong. Any trade you make should be made at your own risk. Also, until the middle of next week, I'm not going to be doing any trading and will not be risking my own money on these calls. By the middle of next week, I hope to be back to my normal schedule. Today's pattern, we said had the early high, which is this. Tomorrow should also have the early high. We had some MEJT targets, 54.39.85, 54.31.54. We also had strong resistance at yesterday's high. Despite all that, I said we should have a gap opening, and I wasn't convinced this resistance was going to hold, and that proved to be an understatement. Here's what we said. We now have new MEJT targets from today's trade. We have an optional target of 55.0409. If it doesn't print by tomorrow, we'll forget it, but when I did a computer check of the pattern over a year, it printed 95% of the time. 95 isn't 100, but 95% chance we're going to have a big drop. Also, the afternoon move up is thought not to be sustainable. Gives us a target of 55.2804. Again, if we gap up smartly, that's kill before the open. Otherwise, that's my call. We had a pattern that gapped up, hit a higher high, and had a reasonable close. But if you look 5 minutes before the close, which is this blue line, we were trading under all these highs. So 5 minutes before the close is right here by this white line. After rallying all day, the last few hours didn't accomplish anything. I don't attribute much importance to the last 5 minutes, and when the last 5 minutes is a wall into the close, there's a good chance we gap down tomorrow, even though futures are up as I'm recording this. Now, of course, just because there's a good chance doesn't mean there is going to be a gap, but if there's going to be a gap, there's a reasonable chance this is the end of the move up. Well, here's Tom DeMark's TDST line on the weekly chart. You can see what a great job it did of calling last week's low. Let's go to the daily chart. Here's the TDST line here. We have one bar completely under the line, which is as far as support goes. We then trade a one bar completely under that bar. That's a break of support and should take us lower. Even though it should take us lower, we called for a big rally on this day for the reasons we discussed, including a bar completely under the lower Bollinger Band. We then rally. This line is still resistance and support. Now we've traded one whole bar completely over resistance. And that's as far as we should go if this is a valid break. So if that's right, this should be it based on this system. We keep going up, then we rejected what his system calls for a valid breakdown. We might go higher. But if this is going to end, it should end right here. Here is a trend line. We gapped over the trend line. That's a valid break of the line. All it needs to count is to trade past today's close by 1 cent. So if we trade past today's close by 1 cent, we could go higher. But again, if we can't trade past the close by 1 cent, that's a false break. So once again, bulls have to trade past the close by 1 cent, and if we're supposed to go higher, that shouldn't be too hard to do. Well, here's the wave count. This could be A and this could be B. And if this is an expanded flat, wave C is exactly 1.618 times wave A. So if that's an expanded flat, this count says we've ended this wave up right over here, which could either be magenta B, this is the all-time high, could be magenta B or A of B. But if we stop here, which at this point we can't safely literally won't, if we stop here, that's the end of this leg. So we've stopped right at, this is about as far as we should go if the rally isn't going to take us significantly higher, and if the break we saw earlier the break we saw last week is a valid break and it met the Marx criteria. If that were a valid break, we shouldn't go any higher than this. If that's a valid break, we should drop right from the open, ideally by gapping down. Shouldn't ever trade over this close. And there could be a big drop coming with these targets and the ones from yesterday. So if that happens, this could be the end of the move. But again, futures are up as I'm recording this, and if we keep going up, the whole idea is killed, which is entirely possible. We're not going to know until tomorrow. Now Friday's pattern has a really high, which doesn't tell us where we open. Typically it is a bearish day with a final hour low. If it's strong instead, we should see more strength in days to come. There are lower MEJT targets. Unless we gap up smartly, they're favored to print. Today's rally took us over strong resistance. It needs to be confirmed to be a valid break. So if we never overtake today's close, that break doesn't count. Despite futures being up as I write this, I think there's a real chance we drop right from the open. So if that happens, that's an if, the wave count's compatible with this rally being over, and if Friday's an inside the day, Monday could see a sizable drop if the drop doesn't even occur on Friday. So this is another candidate for the end of this move up, which should take us higher, should take us lower at some point. It's a very reasonable candidate, but if we keep going higher, the whole idea is killed. It's all dependent upon this being the end of the move, and ideally, even though futures are up, ideally it should start by gapping down. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. We'll say this is a candidate for the end of the move. We're not going to force things if we gap up, but even if we trade over this close, I don't know if I would risk money on it, even if I were able to do trading tomorrow. So it's a pattern with the early high. Chance this is the end, but don't forget there were some other places that had a chance to be the end too. I think it's a very good chance, but if it's wrong, the stop isn't too far away. And that's today's call.